I went to a meeting earlier on with colleagues. I came away from that encouraged. I thought there was a feeling people wanted to listen. They want to be persuaded. They are, I think, in the right place. It won't be easy. It never is. We've got to be, we've got to be respectful and sensible about these things. But I think he should win it tonight, and he should win it. I won't say comfortably, but he should win it with a sufficient margin to be able to say to those who are worried about his future, look, we really need to know.
Are you confident of that, Simon? If you feel cautiously confident the Prime Minister can win with a sufficient margin to make his position secure, how big a margin is that? Well, I mean, a third of the party voting against him is really, really difficult.
Well, I think I disagree with that, and you would probably expect me to. I mean, I take the view that the rules require us to win by one vote. That's what every vote we do over there. If I won my seat in West Wales by 1 vote or 10, I consider that to be more than that.
And that's not a fair analogy either.
But no, I think it is. I think it is a fair analogy because the rules are really clear. He has to win.
Yeah.
And if he wins, then I think the nature of our party is that, at least it always has been, that we accept those results, and then we will try and make peace with those who might take a different view. And I know it sounds a bit cheesy and a bit corny, but we do have to return to the reasons we were elected in the first place. And if the next 3 months is going to be politicians talking about politicians, that's a pretty unattractive prospect from people who sent us here to do something a bit different.
But Simon, when you look at opinion polls, and these things matter.
Yeah.
I know you're not going to give me the same old lines about there's only one poll that matters and all that baloney.
I might.
The opinion polls at the moment tell us that maybe 2/3 of people think the Prime Minister should resign, and that includes let me just put it to you, a large proportion of your own former supporters. Now, with that in mind, if you're not actually saying that one vote's enough, but a narrow vote by your MPs will do nothing to quieten those doubts, to calm that hostility, will it?
I do think when people raise the polling question, and we're all obsessed with polling, and I completely accept that. But I remember back in 2017, 6 weeks out from a general election, I think Theresa May had a 17-point lead, and we were about to win the biggest majority ever known for our party. 6 weeks later,
the Prime Minister blew
6 weeks later. 6 weeks later, we were doing a deal with the DUP to stay in government control. And what that teaches us is stuff changes really, really quickly.
Well, it teaches us that a Prime Minister in a seemingly on position can blow it, but absolutely disastrously.
And
that's hardly a confidence.
Well, no, I tell you why I think it is. What it proves is that Boris Johnson is probably, amongst politicians, the person most likely to be able to rehabilitate themselves. He's done it before. He's come back from difficult positions before. And you're shaking your head, but if anybody can do this and re-establish his reputation as a winner in every respect, then he is probably more likely than anybody else. Right. So never write him off, is what I would say.
Well, I'm smiling just slightly as the Bay City Rollers strike up behind us, adding a sort of festive note to it all.
Yes.
I smile slightly because I think we all know that Boris Johnson is not a guy who changes. He carries on in the same sort of way, often sailing close to the edge, taking a certain amount of delight in that. And people who analyse Boris Johnson's character say he is what he is. You get what you get. You're not going to get a new version of Boris Johnson Mark II.
But that was the image, the persona that you just described is the person who defied all expectation by winning 2 terms as London Mayor when everybody said it wasn't possible. The person who won an 80-seat majority in 2019 when nobody said it was possible. That exactly those characteristics do, for whatever reason, set him apart from many of the other contenders in this sort of hotly contested political area.
Simon, have you seen the polling numbers in London where he used to be mayor? Have you seen the polling numbers in Tiverton and in Wakefield, where you've got crucial by-elections coming up in a couple of weeks?
Yes.
They look uniformly disastrous. Whatever faith there may have been in the Prime Minister in those important areas, it's gone.
And with that in mind, I looked at 20 years' worth of by-election results recently, and the government of the day, the party of the day, has taken some absolute spankings mid-term in the past, far bigger than the polling in Wakefield or Tiverton showing at the moment, and come back and won subsequent elections. So am I relentlessly optimistic? Yes, of course I am, but I hope for the right reasons, and I'm not blindly so, because the right reasons are, as I said before, I think the prospect of the Conservative Party spending the next crucial months in our economic recovery talking, as they to ourselves about ourselves, is not what I want to do. And so whatever happens tonight needs to bring this thing to a conclusion. I personally think that he'll do okay, he'll win it, and then I hope that everybody will, as I say, return to some degree of...
So Simon, if the Prime Minister is to regain this lost ground, he'll have to demonstrate to an awful lot of people that things will be different, that he will be governing differently. Now, you were at the 1922 committee meeting, and so you can help me with this. I'm seeing this reported now by our Times colleague, Patrick Maguire.
Yes.
And here it is. I'm quoting it to you now. Asked about the conduct described in the Sue Gray report, Boris Johnson told MPs, "I'd do it again." What on earth is that about?
That is so deeply frustrating. Actually, what he said in the meeting, and the person who wrote that wasn't in the meeting, was in relation to acknowledging and thanking people in his employment for working hard during the COVID. And he said very clearly that he was doing the right thing by recognising the efforts that they've made. If that is being interpreted as somehow saying that he would breach COVID regulations again because he doesn't come out, that is fundamentally untrue. And whoever wrote that ought to retract that, because that is not what was said, and the context was nothing like that. I was at 4 yards away from Boris Johnson when he said that, and that is inaccurate, inaccurately reported.
I hear what you said. I'd like to see a fuller account of the meeting, and we can have a more informed discussion about that.
I am the fullest you'll get, I think, because it wasn't recorded.
That is so. Now, the one thing I can vouch for is what your cabinet colleague, Jacob Rees-Mogg, said to me just a very short while ago, sitting right at this table, and he was saying one vote is enough. Boris Johnson can carry on if he has a majority of one MP in the vote this evening. And one reason that he said that, Simon, was he said the Prime Minister can tell the party, back me or you'll have a general election. Holding a gun to the party and saying, I'll call an election. Even if we're behind in the polls, we'd lose office, which would be the natural presumption if you call an election well behind in the polls. And he thinks that would force them back into line. Well, first of all, is that remotely likely? Would the Prime Minister consider that for a moment?
I don't think the situation where he wins by one is a likely option, but I take the point. But as I've said before, the rules are quite clear that in any vote, whether it's this one or any other, the person who gets the most votes wins. And I don't think there's many of us who could possibly dispute that. In terms of whether the PM is sort of waving the threat of an early election to try and keep it order, I've not heard him. Of course, everything is ultimately.
Would that even be a sensible thing to do?
Everything is ultimately an option. Is it a serious option? And have I heard him say that? Have I heard anybody in a circle say that? No, I haven't. Yeah. I think Jacob.
You asked the question yourself.
Jacob has said it before. I don't think it's unusual. I don't think it's a new one for him. Yeah.
Okay. Look, so you asked the question yourself. Is that a sensible idea? Why don't you answer your own question? Is that a sensible idea? To call an election to keep the party in line, or threaten to do so.
I don't think it's an entirely hypothetical scenario. So we could talk about hypotheticals for all evening, but it's not one which has even been discussed.
Well, and
it was only because Jacob raised it, and Jacob's raised this particular point before. Listen, we do.
Is it just Jacob being Jacob?
As Tony Blair once said about John Prescott, John's John, Jacob's Jacob, and he does say these things, and he's entitled to it. Sometimes I think people expect us to always agree on every point all the time. One of the reasons that I actually prefer the Conservative Party to some of the alternatives is there's a room for a bit of argument and a bit of disagreement, and then once it's settled, by way of a vote, by a majority, we get on with it.
We get the vote at 9 o'clock. Simon, you're very welcome to come back out here and tell me what you think after 9 o'clock when we get the vote. That invitation is open.
That's very kind. I may well say yes.